Welcome, guys. And now we left off in this specific part on the previous video where we created our React app and we simply run it with what the template gave us. But now we're going to start diving deeper into this template, this folder structure that was given to us, and understanding basically the different parts of it. All right. So first we have this source folder that contains all of these files, but I don't want to maybe confuse you more. So what we're going to do first is to simply remove these ones, the setup, the report vitals, the logo. We are also going to remove the index .css. So we're going to remove these three. Yes, move to trash. Then we are going to also delete these ones. And finally, this one. Now I want you to go into the app.js and simply remove this. Remove the imports as we're not going to need them for now. And I want you to return simply a div that is going to say hello world. As simple as that, so that we can start building on our application from scratch. So we're also going to remove this. We're not going to need this, neither the CSS. And this is the bare bones of what we really need. So in this specific scenario, what the application is doing is that we need to have an index.js file, which is this one, that is going to play the role of the entry point of our application. So there's a thing called bundler that is responsible for taking our application and converting it into something that a web server can understand. So once we are ready, we are going to build the project. And in this build process, a bundler, which for example, in this case is Webpack, is going to go and see in the index.js file what is in there. And based on that, it is going to prepare our application so it can be ready to be served by a web server. So we can simulate that just right now. In case you are curious about it, we can run npm run build. And then this is going to go into a process of building our application. As you can see, this build folder was created for us with a lot of static files. As we can see here, this one is the bundle that was created for us. So in case we just want to deploy this application, as you can see, it says creating an optimized production build. The project was built assuming it is hosted at the root. The build folder is ready to be deployed. You may serve it with a static server. So it is a convention that the bundler is going to look into this file. That's why it is important to call it this way. And it is going to prepare our application so that it can be deployed later on. But for now, we can remove this one so it makes no noise for us. And we can start understanding the application. So we just have some conventions that we need to follow in order to make React work for us. We're going to create a root, which is going to, it means that this root is where our whole application is going to be built upon. So later on, we're going to see that that is something called the React tree. That it is what React uses internally in order to manipulate the DOM, make the different operations that it needs. And this root is like the basis of it. So we're saying that we're going to create a root, and we want it to be in this specific element of our HTML. So in here, we are selecting the root ID. And if we go into our public and our index.html file, we see that in our body, we have a div with the ID of root. And this one is going to be now controlled by React. So what this is basically saying is that we want React to take control of our whole HTML, saying that whatever is going to be rendered inside of my body, I want React to take care of it. So that's why we are targeting this specific element, because we want everything that is inside of it being managed by React. So once we have specified which part of our HTML we want to be delegating to React, we then say on this root, we want to render this component, that we're going to be studying what a component is later on. But in simple terms, it is saying, all right, in here, I want you React to render whatever is inside of here. And if we go to our app component, that in this case, it is this one, it says, oh, right, I'm just going to render a hello world inside of here. And that's in simple terms the flow of what is happening behind the scenes. But what you need to understand is that index.js is an entry point of our application that the bundler is going to later on look at. And in this entry point, we specify in which part of our application we want to react, or what specific part we want React to take control over. In this case, we specify this element that in our case is the whole container inside of our body. So basically our whole application. And then we say inside of it, we want to render this component. And this component simply has a hello world. So now if we go and execute npm run start, it starts the development server for us. And as you can see, it simply rendered hello world because that's what we specified. So that's the process that goes behind the scenes, and that's what's happening, so that you can have a better understanding on why the files are called that way. This app can be called whatever you want, but it is a convention to call it app because in here we are going to basically render every single part of our application in the future. So the convention is to have an index, and in this index we're going to render app. And app in this case is just a simple div with a hello world. And that's what's happening at a first glance when running a React application. And now I want to show you something really nice. All right, now what I want to do is a little comparison. So first I want to create a very basic JavaScript application, and then I'm going to replicate that on React so you can see the differences. All right, so I'm just created a new folder. In here, I'm going to create a index.html file and also a index.js file with vanilla JavaScript. In here, I'm going to create the skeleton of my markup. And for example, we can have an h1. For now, I'm going to say I have not been clicked and a sad face. All right, then I'm going to have also maybe a paragraph that I'm going to say I have been clicked, and maybe here a span, 0 times. And finally, I'm going to also have a bottom with some text. So click me. Pretty simple. I'm also using an extension which is called, let me check because I already forgot. I think it's called Live Server. If you want to also maybe or are interested in, for example, the theme that I'm using, let me know and I can share my extensions with you. This one is called Live Server. So as it says, launch a development local server with live reload. So it's really nice. I have already created my markup, so I can click go live. This is going to give me a really simple UI. And it says I have not been clicked. I have been clicked 0 times and a button. For now, this is just a fully static website because there's no interactions. I can click the button, but nothing is happening. And now what I want to do is make it a little bit more interactive with JavaScript. So for example, I'm going to give this an ID of my title. I'm also going to give my span an ID of counter. And the button, I'm also going to give it an ID of button. And this is simply to being able to target them using JavaScript. So this is a really imperative approach because I'm literally going through step by step in order to tell the client what to do. So in this case, I'm going to target each of the elements. So title element is going to be document dot get element by ID. In this case, it is called my title. Then I'm also going to target my counter, which is going to be document get element by ID, and it is counter. Oops, counter. And then also I'm going to target my button element, document dot get element by ID with button. So this is really simple JavaScript, and I'm just saying I want to target each of these elements. So I'm saying give me my h1 element, give me my counter or span element, and give me my button element. Now I want to it is also giving me an auto completion, but let's wait for that one. What I want to do is say on my button element, I want to add an event listener on the onClick element. And what I want to happen in here is a callback function. In this callback, I simply want to do, in here, I'm going to define some state. That is what we're going to be studying later on. This state, as we saw in our previous video, is simply something that we want or expect that is going to change in our application, and this counter is going to be changing every time we are going to click on the button. So in here we can do counter plus plus, and then on my counter element, on its inner text, I want to assign it the value of counter. Perfect. So now if we go to our really nice UI, oh yeah, of course it is not going to work because on my body, oops, I I included these elements on the head. Please do not do that. I'm going to copy and paste these ones on my body, and at the very end I'm going to attach my script, which is index.js, and then simply close it. So I'm saying render please all these elements, and also attach the JavaScript so that we can add dynamic interactions to it. So now, if we go to our really nice UI, if we click, then the UI is going to be changed, right? So every time I click, this one is going to be increased in 1 and then displayed into the UI for us. Because that's basically what we are saying. We are defining a variable which is called counter, which its initial value is 0. And whenever we are going to be clicking the button, we want to update this. So we're managing the state of our application, but we also want that state to be displayed into our UI. What we can also do in here is, for example, if counter equals 1, then we can change the title element inner text to thank you for clicking me and a happy face. So now if I click it, also this one changed. So as you can see, we're using JavaScript to manually interact with the DOM. We are accessing the elements of our DOM by selecting them and then manually accessing the inner text property that is going to basically change what the text is inside of the brackets, in this case this specific content, and place what we are saying in our code. So this is a really imperative approach. As you can see, we are telling the code line by line what we want it to do instead or how to do it, instead of just do it and you know under the hood how to do it, right? Instead, in here we are basically telling it how to do it. So this is the first part of the exercise. We have created it using simple JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript, and now we're going to replicate this one using React, so you can see the differences. Awesome. So we have just created a really simple application using vanilla JavaScript, where we have our HTML file, also our JavaScript file, and with our JavaScript we are going to be following an imperative way of programming, where we're going to manually select the DOM elements that we want to manipulate, adding a on-click event listener, adding the callback, managing the state, and changing what the DOM elements look like with JavaScript. And if any of those things are strange to you, please reach out to me. I can make maybe a little recap on how JavaScript works, the fundamentals that we need to understand about it. But I didn't want to make a really long video about that, as this is focused mostly on React. So once we already looked at the vanilla JavaScript approach, I want to also show you how the same can be accomplished using React. So as we can see, our main component is going to be our app, as we can see in here. This strict mode is nothing than enabling extra functionality for development. So it is going to catch better errors and doing some extra work for when we are developing. So do not worry about that. And what we are going to be that is going to be displayed in our UI is, for now, as I think that this one is running, yeah, on port 3000. So if I go to localhost 3000, we're going to see the same hello world. That's nice. So this is a really interesting syntax that we're going to be looking more later on. But for now, what I want you to understand is that in here, in this JavaScript function, we can include HTML, styling, and also JavaScript. Okay, so for example, we can say that we want to render a div. So in this div, we're going to have our same h1 saying I have not been clicked. Our paragraph that is going to say I have been clicked 0 times, for example, and a button that says click me. And if we save and refresh, then we have the same markup than before. But now the way to accomplish this new way with React is a little bit different. There's something called hooks, but for now, what I want you to understand is that we can declare our state or what we expect that is going to change in our application with a specific hook called useState. So we can say counter, set counter, it's going to be useState, and for example 0. So what is this weird syntax? This one is basically allowing us to tell React, hey, this variable counter is something that I expect that is going to change in my application. So please, you take care of it. I give it to you by using this useState hook that we're going to be learning about hooks later on. But for now, you just want to understand that if you want something to be managed by React and something that you expect to be dynamic in your application, you need to declare it with the useState hook. And this is basically the structuring because this useState function is going to return to us two elements. First, the counter, and then a function to update that counter. And we also give it an initial value. So this counter for now is going to hold the value of 0. And with this function, we are able to modify its value. And now whenever we want to output JavaScript in our HTML, we do it between curly braces. So we say counter. So with these curly braces, we are telling React that this is something that we want to target using JavaScript. So as this is a variable, I cannot say counter just like this because this is plain HTML. It is not going to be recognized. In fact, if I save it, it is going to say counter. But if I enclose it with curly braces, it knows that it should target the counter variable that was given to me using this useState hook. So what I'm saying right now is this counter variable is something that I expect that is going to change. Please keep track of it. All right. And now on this button, the way of adding an event listener to it is by saying on, and then the event, in this case is click. So this is saying whenever the user clicks on this button, I want something to happen. In this specific case, what do we want to happen? For example, let's say console.log, I have been clicked. So as you can see, it's a pretty different way than just with vanilla JavaScript because, for example, in here, I am not targeting the paragraph and changing the inner text of it. It is not imperative, it's declarative because I'm saying, React, you do yourself, but whenever my counter changes, please update my UI. And the way of adding event listeners is not by targeting the element and adding an event listener by hand, but with some properties that React gives to us. So it's way more simple because we are just saying on this button, whenever the user clicks on it, I want something to be executed. In this case, it's also a callback function, something that is going to be executed whenever the click is pressed by the user. And in this case, I just want for now to log to the console this message. So let's see if this works. we can open our console, and then if I click it, nice, I am receiving the logs on my console. So this is being hooked correctly, my button with what I want to do. So now the really fun part comes here, because whenever my button is clicked, I want to increment my counter, right? So React is giving me right away the function to update my counter. So in this scenario, I can just simply say whenever my button is clicked, I want to set the counter, let's say 240, something like this, just to see it happening. Nice. As you see, the state that before we were manually updating is being updated by React. What we can do in here is using also a callback function that receives the previous value, and with this previous value I want to previous value plus 1. So I'm saying please set the counter with whatever was the previous value and increase it by 1. So in the first scenario, it is going to be 0, 0 plus 1, 1. The second one, it is going to be 1, 1 plus 1 is going to be 2, and so on. So as you can see, if I now refresh my application and I click it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So we have achieved the same functionality as we did with vanilla JavaScript, but in this case, the JavaScript and the HTML are all enclosed in one simple or single place, which is easier to maintain because everything is tightly coupled. As you can see, before the files were in different places, it was like more difficult to see what is going on. And but in this case, as the HTML and JavaScript with more complex applications have become more coupled together, then having them in just one place, it's easier for us to manage. So this is a really declarative approach. We are telling React what we need to happen, but we let React sort it out behind the scenes. We do not know what is going on. We just tell React that this variable right here is going to be something that is going to be changing in our application, and please, whenever it changes, update my UI accordingly. So whenever this function is called, which is going to update the value of my counter, that in this specific scenario is going to be updated based on a click on a button with the previous value plus 1. Then as soon as I click the button, React is going to say, oh hey, my state is changing, my counter is changing, I need to update it. And it goes to my UI and changes the value for us. And this is basically the comparison between the two different approaches. And as we begin building more complex and complex application, you are going to see the value of a library like this. So for now, I hope that it is clear. We haven't really seen components, because this is a component, which is a function that inside of it has JavaScript, has HTML, can also have styling. We are also using a React hook. There's a lot of things that we have not gone into that deep for now, but we need to start building on the concept slowly so that it is not going to be really confusing. But I wanted you to grasp on the idea of the power of React and the differences between using vanilla JavaScript and using React, and maybe the improvements that it can bring to the table when you begin working with really huge applications. So I really hope that it was useful, and on the next videos we're going to be building more and more on this concept, and I hope that this helps you understanding at least a little bit more what this library is able to do, right? So thank you for sticking with me. I really hope that you enjoyed it and understood it. If not, please uh, tell me all your concerns on the comments and I'm going to address them. And see you in the next one. Bye bye.